Good morning. How are we doing, everybody? That's a filled up room. You all came to see me? What's wrong with you? Me? All right. Morning, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for coming to my talk. Thank you, Ed, for the great introduction. I wish my mom could be here. So like, hey, look, Mom. You know, not bad. All right. So today I'm going to be talking about forms. And before I begin, let's kind of get the formalities out of the way. So, my name is Sani Yusaf, and I am Nigerian, but I live in London, but I'm originally from Nigeria. I was going to say the other way around for some reason. And I'm also a Google developer expert in Angular. And me being a Google developer expert means that, look, I'm crazy and I made it. You can make it there too. And I absolutely love the movie Avatar. If you've probably watched me speak before, you know this was coming. Has anyone not seen the movie Avatar by any chance? All right. Okay, there's only one serial killer in the room. All right, good. It's a great movie. I think it's the best movie of all time. So if you haven't seen it, yes, Avatar. Haven't seen it, go and watch it. It's easy to find me online. I am Sani Yusuf everywhere, SaniYusuf. You can find anyone that looks half as ugly as I am with the same username, let me know so I can claim it. All right, serious time now. Let's talk about forms. Who here works with forms? Yes. Who here doesn't work with form? Okay, there's recruiters outside in case you need a job. We know. All right, so forms, we use them every day. Every single day we use forms. If you think you haven't used up to 20 forms since the beginning of today, you actually be wrong. And I'm actually going to show you why. They are critical to how we interact with technology or just, a lot of computers and electronic tools in general. So let's have a look at some forms. Does anybody know this form? There's a certain man that we all go on Twitter to watch what he's saying, because every one of his tweets could literally start World War III. So this guy here is very, very important. So this is the Twitter form itself. And if you think about it, without this thing here, the entire business goes away. There is no billion-dollar business. There's no kofefe. There's nothing. This is very, very important, right? If you know, you know. So it's a very important form. So then next one, this, right? So I can see some faces here, and it's like you never thought about it as a form, because it just works. When forms work, we don't think about them as forms. When they don't work, that's when we remember. So this is the world's most expensive form. This is a $750 billion form. Literally. Because of this form, we are at a conference here. Think about it. This is the world's most expensive form, right? This is the single most important page on the internet. And it's like just widescreen and one form field. But it works all the time. And with this, we can do a lot of things, a lot of cool stuff, a lot of creepy stuff too. But hey, not going to say a lot of exactly. Then we have this guy. Again, another one of the things that we don't really think of as a form, right? You just whip up your phone, you make a phone call, you scream at somebody, and you turn it off, and it just works. But it's actually a form. And it's actually one of the most well-designed forms because it actually allows you to type both letters and numbers, alphanumerics. Anybody still remember the time when we still had to type text messages and we had to use this, ABC, exactly. I tried to tell one of my nephews recently and he had no idea what I was talking about. That was the day I realized I was old. I'm like, oh my God, I'm old. I remember that. Exactly, so this is another form that we tend to use every single day and we don't realize. This one is a bit of a myth here. I put this picture up because I didn't want to make it obvious. What do you think I'm trying to signify here? Anyone? What do you think? Exactly, the address bar. That's another form field that you use every single day. But again, you don't think of it necessarily as a form field because, www.dodgywebsite.com and incognito, and it just all works, right? And that's the thing. It's really another well-built form. It gives you autocomplete and stuff like that. And the final one, this guy. Everybody hates this guy because this is how everybody says, oh, look, I'm on holiday. Look, I just went to the bathroom. Look, this, all of that. But this is interesting because with this one form, that's how the whole thing is built up. Like, you can decide who becomes president with this form. It's interesting. Very, very interesting. So it just shows you how powerful forms are. They're really, really, really powerful piece of technology. But we tend to just not really think of them that way. The reason is technology is an interesting thing where it allows us to extend our humanity. It's like when you're driving a car and there's something wrong with the car. It's almost like you can hear the noise, you can feel the vibration. You're like, oh, I think something's wrong with my left tire or something like that. And forms are the same. When a form is like annoying, you feel annoyed. But when it's easy to use, you like it. So there's a saying I always say, forms have the ability to make or break your business. Because everything we do in IT at the end of the day is about collecting information and presenting information. It's CRUD. It's collecting and presenting information. If you think about most of the applications you use on your mobile phone, the majority of them are glorified lists. WhatsApp is a glorified list, right? It's a $30 billion glorified list. Gmail is a glorified list. Twitter is a glorified list. Facebook is a glorified list. But these are powerful applications that make or break the way we go about our day. But they're all glorified lists. So, before we begin, I'll start by showing you some really, really terrible forms. Yeah, let's start with the bad news first. It's always good to start with the bad news. So, the first one is this one. It says, let me make my damn mistake first. Can anybody see what might be wrong here? So we've just landed on this great website, sani.com, and then we see this. So the whole idea is, I haven't even typed anything. The website is already screaming at me saying, give me your first name, give me your last name. Imagine walking into a room and you go into the reception in the hotel and they're like, give me your first name, give me your last name. You're like, well, I don't think I want to stay here anymore. It's like, so that's kind of how it feels like. It's screaming at you. It's like you haven't actually even attempted to fill the form, but the form is already complaining about the information you haven't given it. So you're like, this is very dodgy. Why should I give you my information? And by the way, every single demo I show here, every single picture, there is a Stackblades link that you can go when I share the slides to see the code of how this is built. And secondly, don't let me submit if I'm doing something wrong. This one. Can anybody see what they think is the problem here? The submit button, exactly, it's enabled. So you're going to go and submit this form, and it's just going to go to the server and come back and tell you no, for no reason. So it's like, it should be very clear about information that is mandatory. The format I like to use is, I only show optional fields, and then mandatory is implied, maybe with a little asterisk. So, but if you have more optional fields, of course, that dynamics changes. But sometimes you can't do this because when you have call to action or acquisition buttons, if you need to collect someone's email, you're probably not going to disable the submit button. You really want their email to jump on their mailing list. So it's very important that you have the ability to tell users, okay, this form is very invalid. I need you to do X, Y, Z first before I let you submit. Because there's no point letting you submit and you're just going to come back. All right? So focus only on what I'm currently doing. This is very important. So I go on this form, and me being me, I'm too playful. I don't want to fill my first name first, because I really love my dad, so I want to put his name first. But the form is complaining that I haven't given it my first name. So I'm like, do you want my information or not? It's like, it shouldn't really matter which order I put my information. As long as I give you the correct information, it shouldn't matter. But the reason why a lot of this, like these forms that I'm showing you, I'm not here just trying to say, developers are terrible and they're bad, they don't know how to build forms. Technically, it's really difficult to build really good forms. If you worked with Ajax and jQuery and you try to build complex forms, my heart is with you. If you had to pass through that, or with PHP forms, my heart, exactly. So we know ourselves in the crowd, exactly. I think the .NET people had it pretty good. .NET Forms was a pretty good platform. It wasn't perfect, but it was at least better. So users can only interact with one input at a time. You only have one cursor. If you have two cursors, you have a broken computer. You only have one cursor. Or maybe you use Windows, then that would make sense. But you have one cursor at a time. So that's the only thing. And sometimes it's very important that you know when a user has interacted with the field, if they've touched the field, if they've focused and they've left. That way you can give them correct error messages, right? you want to let a user at least attempt and then leave, and then you show them error messages. That's a good way. Because I want to feel like you're watching me, not in a creepy way, but like you're helping me. Oh, no, don't do that. You know, that kind of thing. You're guiding me to fill the information. There is exception when order matters. If we're building a form that allows you to, for example, do things like you need to put your zip code first and stuff like that, this then goes down the drain because you require that order, but then that makes sense. And then never make me fill a long form. This one. This is the reason why nobody likes taxes. Exactly. The government hasn't figured it out. They think we're just bad citizens, but it's this. Because we just fill information after information, and it gets worrying. Has anybody had this thing where they want to do something quickly on the mobile phone, and they open this form, and it's like long, and they're like right there, they say, oh, I'll do it when I get home. Like you stop right there. Or maybe you go on a form and it's like not mobile optimized, and you're like, no, you're not. Especially when you're putting your credit card information, it's like you just feel this mistrust because you're like what you've done in your head is you've gauged how much effort you're going to need to fill this form, and it's just not worth it at that point in time. Exactly. So this is instead of making users fill this long form, give them like a little map. They know exactly how many pages or how many different sections. Give them a state to know, okay, you're in section 1 now. This is your personal details. And when you finish that, you go to section 2. Even go further by making it persistent. You can fill this form and halfway, you can come back. It makes a lot of sense. If you've tried to book airline tickets in a long form where you book airline, there was one, we shall not name that airline, just in case someone here works there. The Voldemort airline, the you-know-who airline. But I was trying to book a flight ticket, and I filled this long information. They wanted my name, everything, where I was going, email, and then I finished, and it goes, oh, by the way, the state, the session is over. I'm like, well, of course, it takes ages to fill the bloody form. That's why. So then we have this one. So you have your new website. You're telling me it's the best website. It's going to be better than Facebook and Google. And I'm like, oh, you know what? I like this guy. Let me give him my information. So I put my username, man's not hot, and my full name, Big Shaq, my password and everything. I really like you. I want you to succeed. So I'm giving you my information. What happens? This happens. So you're telling me someone smarter than me has taken the username, man's not hot. But worst of all, where is my information? So now, I'm trying to help you here, by the way. So now I have to write my own information again. Clearly, you're not serious about being successful. So the whole idea is these forms are really difficult to create. They are. They're not straightforward. If they were straightforward, there'll be only one person managing the Google homepage. But I'm pretty sure there are thousands of those people. So it's like you have to think of a lot of things because the whole idea is if a user feels good giving you information that it's very easy for them, then they'll always give you information. This is why Typeform is very popular. Because before Typeform, we had different types of forms where it was just long, but Typeform just made it easy, like, just focus on one thing at a time. And that's how it became popular. And one of the reasons why when we enter examination halls, we feel freaked out is because the exam is actually a form. It's like, give me your answer, give me your answer, give me your answer. And if you're like me, you haven't studied, you're totally screwed. So you're like, oh my days. So it's stuff like that. So with Angular, I'm going to introduce you to Reactive Forms. So Angular Reactive Forms. So just before we proceed, there are two form packages in Angular. There's Reactive Forms, and then there's Reactive Forms. Those are the only two form packages in Angular. They are the only two. A lot of people got that. Okay, that's it. That's all you need. So they allow you to observe what the user is doing. Really know what the user is currently doing. Have they touched this field? Have they touched that field? X, Y, Z. And that then allows you to create empathetic forms. You have empathy for the user. Oh, let the user give you a password first. Then they leave that field. Oh, by the way, that password that you gave me, it's not 8 characters. Why don't you make it 8 characters? And they'd be like, oh, okay, 8 characters long. Oh, please, by the way, just for it to be very secure, add a special character and an uppercase. So you're actually convincing the user why it's good for them to give you that information. And that's really, really, really important. So you have empathy for the user. And then that allows you to also compose. You can compose complex forms, right? And then for all of us that work in companies where we have bosses that we really don't like, that would come and just say we want the form to go to the moon for whatever reason. We all have that boss, especially the new ones that come, like they just join after a week and they bring their Excel spreadsheet and they want to see what everybody's doing. Yeah, so you can extend it and you can create your own custom, forms or input elements in your company, right? So let's look at the building blocks. We have everything in the reactive forms is an abstract control, right? Everything is an abstract control. The abstract control is the base element. Then inside of the abstract control, everything just swims in there. So the form control, the form group, and the form array. And we're all going to see each and every one of these members. But each and every one of them extends the abstract control. So they're just children of that abstract control, and the abstract control gives you certain base properties and functions that they all either extend, override, or totally ignore. So to get started, you have you import the reactive forms module. Like I said, there are two modules, reactive forms and reactive forms. So you can import any one of them in there. You get started. And then the first one we're going to have a look at is the form control. So this is the base level one-to-one mapping between an input element and reactive form. So you create a form control here. So you can see what we've done here is we have a component and we instantiated the form control and we've just bound it to an input element here with the form control property, which is made available when you import that specific forms module, reactive forms module. So you bind it via the form control property. And then we have the form group, which is probably the most popular way to use reactive forms. It works mainly with the form element, and you use it to aggregate and group controls, right? So it gives you an object-based API, so you access the members like an object. Let's have a look at the code for that. So you can see here we've instantiated a form group here. We've instantiated a new, and inside of that form group, we've created names for every single child element, right? So first name, last name, and email. But the thing is, each one of these doesn't have to be a form control. Each one of them can be an abstract control, meaning that child cannot just be a form control, but also a form group and possibly a form array. So you could have a form group that all its children are actually form groups as well. So you can really keep building these long, really large, complex forms. And then you can use the form group and the internal form control name to associate the children with an input. You can really, really do that and get really crazy. And then we have the form array, kind of like the black sheep of the family. Nobody really uses the form array much, but it's more if you need an object-based API, an array-based API to access the form control. So it's like the form group, but it just gives you an array-like syntax to work with it. So indexes instead of object member lookups. And then you can also use the form builder to make everything easier, because everything you've seen before now was all imperatively done, but you can declaratively create all these members. You have the form builder, which has 3 methods: group, array, and also control. Please do not use the control method in the form builder to make a form control. It's just create a form control. It's better that way. It's faster. But you can do the same thing there. And this allows you to really compose. So if you're getting data from the backend and you want to repopulate a form field, you can do that. Look at that. I totally kicked this out, I'm telling you. No, my defense is off. Yeah. So we're going to do some demos. We're going to show value changes, a few things about the form controls. We're also going to show the built-in validation of the Angular reactive forms. We're also going to show composition, how you can compose certain things and your own validators. Custom validation, of course. And I'm going to show you a custom async validation feature. There's a warning with the last demo, so let me set the expectation. I rely on an API that, for whatever reason, just 30 minutes ago decided to stop working. Literally, I suspect someone in the crowd is responsible, but yes. So we're just setting that expectation. So let's all open it all up. Okay, I have MongoDB up. Probably not a smart idea. So let's go to Chrome. Let's go to Chrome. So the first thing we're going to go and see is the form control. So here I've built something called a Twitter form control. I love Twitter. Twitter is a very crazy place, and I'm a crazy person, so a match made in heaven. So I've just built a Twitter form control much better. Can everybody see, or bigger? Perfect? Okay, good. So here I've just built a Twitter form control. Here you can see it has the character count, 280 characters, I believe. And you can see the tweet button is disabled. And you can also see some values: untouched, invalid, and pristine. So there are a few properties that the form controls give you, the form control element gives you. So untouched means the user hasn't focused on the field and left. They have to leave for it to be touched. Pristine means the initial value that you set while you were instantiating that form hasn't changed. So once that has changed, even if you come back to the same value, it's always no longer pristine. It's now dirty. And then you have invalid. Invalid is based off of the rules you set for validation. So once those rules are obeyed, it becomes valid. So let's have a look at the code quickly. So let's also make this a little bit larger. Perfect. Everybody see? So here you can see on line 13, we have a form control. We have the max character count and the character count left. So on line 18, you can see we've instantiated the form control. The first parameter is the initial value. And then we have a validator. So the second parameter is a validator or an array of validators, so you can have multiple validators. So we've made it required, meaning it has to have a value for it to be valid. And then we're using the value changes property in the line 19, because that value changes property gives you an observable that shows you the current value as the value is changing. So you can just hook into that observable and just keep doing the math there with the 280 minus whatever the length of the current value is, will give you amount of characters left. So that kind of makes sense. If we look at the HTML quickly, what have we done here? If you look at the disabled, the submit button, we've just said disable this button as long as, on line 8, the Twitter form control is invalid. So we don't need to check. We can just say, as long as the rules haven't been obeyed, just disable this submit button. And here we have the form text area, and if we go there now, we can say, hi there, my name is Sani. So you can see the properties are changing as I am typing, and you can see the count is also updating, and now the tweet button is activated. So you can see how it's all reacting thanks to RxJS. It's all happening immediately, automatically. You don't necessarily ever need to go and drill down to check. But if you want to do that, you have the ability to even go and say which of the errors is valid or invalid at that point in time. You can do that. So again, these demos are all available on Stackblitz. You would have the link, but that's kind of the simple reactive forms, form control based thing we've done here. And here you can see that we have all the states, and based on the states, we are hiding and showing which state is valid. But not only that, we also have CSS hooks. So that's really good for your designers. So you have, for example, if a form field is invalid, there's a ng invalid class that gets added. So you can hook into that from CSS without ever needing to touch code. So your designers will love that. Just say, here are these classes based on these behaviors, and they can create great CSS for you. So we're going to go into the next demo here. Very simple demo. It's just basically a form that says, give me your email address and your password and your confirm password. So let's have a look at the code quickly before we actually test this demo. So if you look at the code here, on line 20, we've instantiated this form group with 3 members: email, password, confirm password. So for email to be valid, what needs to happen, anybody? For email to be valid, that's line 21. What do you think? Yes, it has to be required and has to be a valid email. Word of warning, do not use this email validator because it's based off of the original email spec, and the email arrived before .com. So Sani @ Sani is a valid email because there was no .com before that. So Don't use that. Use the pattern matching to match actually dot something. Yeah, thank me later. So these two need to be valid, and then you have the other ones which are just required password. They just need to be required. You just need to provide something, right? So let's have a look at that. So we'll say Sani@million.com, and you can see the status has been changing. Now it's valid. It's still untouched because I haven't actually left the form field. And once I leave, it's touched now. So here I'm going to put 1, 2, 3. And here I'm going to put 3, 2, 1. So we have a conundrum. The confirm password and the password are valid. But we wouldn't want people to be able to submit this form because they don't match. And that's when you now need a custom validator on the group level. And let's have a look at how we achieve that here. So if you look at that, we created a custom validator here called password match. And we've just created, it's just a simple function that the form group gets injected. And then we're just comparing the values of the confirm password and when we return an error. So now if you go back to our form field, you can see that we have an error called password.match, which I created. But if I go back here and I say 1, 2, 3, and then everything works. So you can put the validators also on the form group level to say, yes, everything works, but I also need you to run this validator. All right, so we're quickly running out of time. We have one more thing that we're going to show. Unfortunately, like I said, the API, for whatever reason, just decided not to work. So here what I'm doing is basically I created a short form field here. And the whole idea is that you would put in your, what's it called, your zip code, and then it will tell you exactly if you can deliver to this billion-dollar application we've created, right? And the whole idea is, you probably read the news, you've heard what is happening in our country, so we only deliver if you live in like England, Scotland, Wales, or Northern Ireland, because that might be the case pretty soon. So that's kind of like what the what's it called? The validator works. So it's an async validator. It's using the Zippopotamus API, right? But I tried to do that and it works. I reverted back to an older one, which I used the country of Finland, and it worked. Then I checked the online stuff, and it looks like there's a problem with the API. Like right now, so I'm like, ugh, why? So the whole idea is when we come here, we created this form field. And in the zip code member, what we've done is we've created a custom async validator. That means for this form field to be valid, it's going to go make an asynchronous request, and it's going to put the form group in a state called pending while it's making that asynchronous request. So this is very good if you need to do something like you want to check if a password is, a username is taken while someone is filling the form. Right? So you want to go make that request and say, actually, this username is taken. There's no point of you submitting this form because it's not going to work anyways. And you can make that check. So you can make an asynchronous request. And that doesn't have to be to the server. That can also be to just a local asynchronous request with a promise or an observable. And the whole idea is you just create a function, and that function has a form control. It will expect whatever form control you're associating it with. And then you just return an observable that either has undefined or null, or preferably null if everything is okay, or an object with an error name if there's something wrong. So it's like a reverse Boolean. If everything is okay, null. But if something is wrong, return something. It's crazy. Don't ask me how. I did. You can meet the Angular team. They wrote it. So that's kind of is a shame that we wouldn't be able to demo that. But feel free after the API is fixed. The link is available, and you can really, really check that. So we're going to go back to the presentation now, quickly. Okay. So for you to get started today, you can go to the demo links. Everything's available at stackblitz.com as Sani Yusaf. Angular guide for the reactive forms, both of them. You can ask me a question on Sani Yusuf on Twitter. Be careful, my Twitter can be a bit too much, so come with a cape. If you want to learn in person, we teach this at Angular Bootcamp, so feel free to check there. And with that said, I think at this point in time, my presentation is over. I have around 20 seconds left. I'm going to say Nagode, which is how you say thank you in a language I actually speak in Nigeria. But it's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm going to be outside, so feel free to grab me for in-depth questions or send me a tweet. But thank you very much. It's so great to see like this number of people come in to see what I have to say. I do not take it for granted. I really, really appreciate that. Thank you very much for your time.